So, in court today, the irrepressible good governance activist Omoyele Sowore and others stood in solidarity with 11 end bad governance protesters charged with treason by the Tinubu government. Their trial was supposed to take place this week at the Federal High Court in Abuja, but it was adjourned. Mr. Sowore and other solidarity protesters are calling for the immediate and unconditional dismissal of the charges, which they described as outrageous. The lawyers representing the 11 say their constitutional rights have been violated. Their fellow protesters say there is no justice in Nigeria and that these kinds of sham trials will only deepen anger on the streets. Civil society groups say the real issue is the lack of respect for the right to peaceful assembly and the failure to correct glaring instances of bad governance and abuses across Nigeria. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the human rights activist, journalist, founder of the US-based news website Sahara Reporters, and former presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore. Great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
And you were in court today for today's treason trial of the 11 end bad governance protesters. Tell us what happened.
As it is typical of the Nigerian police, the prosecutors in this case, they came to court asking for an adjournment, claiming that the police officer who started the prosecution, Samuel Law, SAN, has been retired, which is false. He wasn't retired. He was dismissed from the police force for altering his age. So in the first place, the originator of the charges is also going to be facing charges in the next 1 week or so for altering his age. So that tells you the foundation of these charges and the kind of characters behind this very malicious charge against our patriots.
Well, what I'm trying to understand is that, because I know that charges of treason against a larger group of about 150 protesters were dismissed in November last year, after the Attorney General withdrew the charges. I mean, why are these remaining 11 still being tried?
Well, those ones were minors, lightly.
Right.
And because of the embarrassment involved in,
right.
In that, they quickly discontinued those charges. But for these ones, they want to continue to use them to discourage others who might get involved in peaceful protests in the future. That's what happened.
Right.
And it's so sad that the police prosecutor said he couldn't really prepare for today's trial because the police officer who originated it probably went away with the file.
So when do they adjourn it till?
It's adjourned till October, which is time wasting.
That is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous that you have been on these charges since last year. They didn't even have witnesses. They couldn't provide any strand of evidence to show that these guys committed any of these crimes that they have been persecuted for. It was shameful in court today.
You talked about deterrent, which is why they're continuing with this prosecution. I mean, one popular activist, you probably know her, but I won't mention her name, said that she believes the government fears demonstrators more than anything else, and every placard raised in protest suggests to them that this country is facing the unprecedented collapse of law and order. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do completely. They're afraid of placards more than they're afraid of guns, because they have the capacity to respond to people who are shooting at the government, but they have no capacity, they have no ability, and they have no strategy to stop a majority. People in their large numbers carrying placards are more dangerous than people in their large numbers carrying guns. Because they have essentially the law on their side. They have law on their side, they have international support on their side, they have morality on their side, they have conscience on their side. And nobody can defeat those things at once.
But they still attack them, though.
Well, they can attack as much as they want, but they can't stop this kind of ideas.
Right.
Yes.
And I was going to say that in spite of that threat from law enforcement agencies who try to quell these protests with something like, I mean, they quell them regularly and with something like chilling precision. I mean, you keep returning to the streets and clenching your fist in a demonstration of defiance, even with all the risks. Why is that?
Well, it is to understand why we have this commitment. For a lot of people who don't understand philosophically why we fight for justice, they might think you're putting yourself in harm's way. For me, I'm making a sacrifice. I'm using my body, I'm using my conviction to stop what is evil in my society. And that sacrifice is way more important, it's more impactful than what could come to me in terms of harm. And it comes out of conviction, it comes out of clarity, most of it also very intellectual, because you have to understand what you're fighting for and what the struggle is about, and in what situation and context you're fighting. So, and they understand that. That is why they keep doing what they do to me.
Well, I was going to say, your conviction must be absolutely rock solid, because, you've had years of arrests, rearrests, detentions, and so on.
I can't count, but we're not yet at the point where we should.
Somebody said that they think you might actually enjoy this this cat and mouse
there's nobody,
that you play with.
There's nobody who would enjoy suffering. There's nobody who enjoy being threatened.
Well, you have masochists. They actually enjoy pain.
It is the people who are doing this to us who enjoy inflicting pain on others.
Right.
But when you look at the number of people who do this, the masochists, the narcissists, and the number of people who need some of us to stand between them and those who could just eviscerate or make them evaporate, you would understand why what we're doing is important, no matter how little it is. And the conviction that we have, very deep, that, this is what is right. But again, I'm trying to say that we're not at a point where we should be counting our eggs yet, because we have not yet defeated the ideas that have kept us enslaved to these people. But they're so minuscule, they're so small, that with better conviction and with more people consciously convinced that they can come on our side, not on our side, but in their own interest on our side, these people can actually be defeated within a short period of time. And we should mention that it's going to be 1 year very soon. That's End Bad Governance 1 year anniversary is coming, and it's going to be massive.
And by coincidence,
yes.
We saw people out on the streets in Kenya today,
yes.
didn't we? Did you feel a sense of solidarity with them?
Oh yes, I have sent messages to them that we are with them. We stand with Kenyans who are genuinely fighting for liberation and freedom in their own country. We must admit that even End Bad Governance had some kind of Kenyan push to it. It was when Kenya was fighting the
It emboldened
a lot of young people in Nigeria. And then, of course, annually on August 5, we already do, remembrance of Revolution Now. We started in 2019. So this year will be the 6th year of Revolution Now and the first year anniversary of End Bad Governance revolt in Nigeria. And we suspect, my suspicion today when they were asking for a new date, is that they want to make sure that these guys are not discharged and acquitted, so that they may not be part of the planning for.
Right.
But that's mistaken, because there's a lot more people now on that side.
Right.
Yes.
And you have pending cases in court at
Several
the moment?
of them, yes. I have, I think I have 2 or 3 criminal cases and about 15 civil cases.
My goodness.
Bordering on libel and...
How do you keep track of all these cases?
Well, sometimes I can. Sometimes I find out from lawyers who are just sitting...
So they ring you up and say...
they just mentioned your
name.
Yele,
it's a court date today.
Yes. So I got a call from a lawyer yesterday in Lagos and said, oh, they just mentioned your name, that you have a case pending in this court. I'm not... Most of these cases, they don't even try to serve me the summons, because they know that it will be difficult to defeat me if I'm represented. Right. So they want to obtain judgment.
But does it cost you a lot of money, though, having lawyers all over the place trying to kind of deal with it?
Does, but I have to also use this opportunity to thank people, lawyers who have been supportive.
They volunteer
pro bono to support my work over the years. I think I've mentioned on your show several times that Femi Falana has been SAN has been defending me since 1992.
Great guy, isn't he?
1992 pro bono. Since 1992. If it wasn't because of him, I probably wouldn't have graduated from the University of Lagos.
Yeah, Femi is a great
So, and there are several other young
legendary
lawyers now who have joined the movement for institutional legal justice.
But it's a kind of, if you like, attritional thing, isn't it? You're chipping away at the block with almost like you're using a toothpick to chip away at a very big block. Because, I mean, despite your ringing calls for revolution now, you've still been unable to deliver the kind of real change. I mean, there's been some measure of change because democracy, ostensible democracy, has returned. But the kind of real change that you propose, you haven't seen yet.
Well, you might be looking at it from your own point of view that we're using a toothpick to prick a balloon of oppression. But those people who are feeling the pressure of what we do know that we're not using toothpick.
Right. And even then, a toothpick hurts, doesn't it? If I prick you with a toothpick, it'll hurt.
Well, because the other type of oppression is a balloon, so you can deflate it at any time if you press it a little hard. So, but what is important, and this is what I remind people, is that some of these changes we're advocating for may not even happen during our lifetime. Some of them might happen after we're gone, but there are several of them that has already happened. When I was in university, 21 years old, I never knew that the efforts we're making, with our toothpicks, would lead to the military abandoning power in 1999. Of course, that came about. We have, transition from military to civilian rule. Now we're in search of transition to democracy or transition to total liberation. So I understand that, and but that is my goal. Is not to look at how far, but how much impact every effort we're making has on the psychology of power. It is that impact that's most important, because you never know when that final push will lead to a shock.
Indeed.
Yes.
And you mentioned university. You were at university with Segun Sowore, were you?
I was. And I should say it is very interesting. When we were arriving at the University of Lagos, Segun Sowore was about to leave. So, and we were just hanging around one evening, and he came around in Erika Hall, very close to the University of Lagos gate, and he spoke very powerfully. He's
a good orator.
He's an orator, but I should also say he's a demagogue. So, but I always had a problem with him.
Sorry, Segun, we're gossiping about.
Oh yeah,
but you can listen if you want.
He knows.
Okay.
He knows it. I've told this to his face several times, but when we want to go for protest, Segun will disappear. He will prepare you for it, but he won't be on the ground. And you see him the next day, you say very nice things, and he will always have an excuse for why,
Well, I'll tell you what.
But we're friends still tomorrow. But we have, of course, fundamental disagreements on principle of,
Right.
I think ideological differences, because I'm just not where he is ideologically.
Well, I mean, what I thought was interesting is that he was a big critic of Mr. Tinubu, but then suddenly had a much publicized visit to the president's home, and now seems to have become a supporter of the president, because he was sitting where you were sitting and says he's he talked to him and he's seen all the glorious things the president's planning to do.
It is what demagoguery is about, Speak loud enough to be noticed, say things you don't believe in, and then the next day you're doing something that you told people not to stand for. It's like practicing what you don't preach. So, and I responded to him also when he did this, and I reminded him. I said,
"Yes, I actually quoted what you wrote.
You used to do this in the university. I thought you changed."
I like that.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what. He responded to you when he was on this program because of that thing that you wrote. So let's take a listen and hear what he actually said when he was on this program.
I do not believe that the concept of opposition is daydreaming and building castles in the sky that don't work.
Right.
I don't believe that either Wole, Yele, myself, or any of the Yoruba people will be reasonable to think in a political zone country we should be dreaming and taking the peace by saying that when a Yoruba man is in charge, any other person can try to challenge him and win. it would be ridiculous for the Yorubas to say, oh, Bala Shariton president will take 4 years, and then the Yorubas will want a fresh 4 years so that they can then do 12 years. So that doesn't make sense. I called Yele at the beginning when I saw the way the whole thing was. And I wanted us to sit down and take a look at it broadly. But you know, Yele, I concede that he's been standing with his YAC, one of the party that he's been, and he's the presidential candidate, and he's the leader of his party. I concede and I see his effort, but I don't think it will work. I'd hope that we'll sit down and say, okay, dude, how can we make this work? I wasn't looking at mainly challenging the president. I wanted us to start thinking and vying our mind to succession, because these men are old. It's not their fault, everybody grows old. But I have not seen a systematic plan that allows the next generation of leaders to begin to collaborate with themselves.
Right.
Okay, what do we do? How do we go about it? Can we have a roadmap that we can all sign up to? That cheeky nonsense, Omoyele, doesn't make sense to me. In the University of Lagos I talked about, I'm the son of a soldier. Yes, I could rally them for protest, but I don't think that if I know what it means to have students come before rapid fire of a machine gun, knowing what I know, I should be interested in telling them to go do that.
Right.
It's talking about the SAP riot. And I chose at that point in time that once we're able to break the barricade of the school and do that SAP riot and join our colleagues, that's it.
Right.
We were not going to stand on the street and do TMN Square. The
Well,
the world has metamorphosed. But that's Yele's problem. He can keep running the way he wants.
Right.
I'll keep encouraging because he's my brother. I see some of the good things he's doing. But I don't have to be Yele.
Could show me that. I hope you don't think we waylaid you here.
No,
because you were speaking about him. I figured you were going to.
That's the Segun Showme
well.
I knew in 1989. You know, he'll rally you, encourage you to go and face. He will tell you that he will lead, and the next morning you can't find him. Of course, I have been a leader since 1989, as he testified to. And I've been consistent, and you can see the difference between my consistency and his, waffling ways.
Well, I can certainly say for you that you have been consistent.
Yeah. So and we met after he came on your show on our way to Ondo State, I think 2 weeks ago. We met, and he repeated some of these things, and I said to him, "So what is wrong with Segun Showme being president of Nigeria?" Because he said, "Oh, we can't defeat these people." So if you can't defeat them, let those who can defeat them, let them organize and defeat them. So this has been his way, or his ways, and I do not take it personal that he had things like this to say. I just think that's how they are.
Well, to be fair, he was reacting to the
post
that you wrote.
I completely understand.
He didn't just come up with it.
I understand. When it comes to expressing how I feel about individuals, I can be on the offense. And I expect that when they react, they react the same way. It's expected. But what is important that is missing between himself and I is character.
Yeah. Well, let's move away from that.
Yes.
2027, of course, the next big electoral moment in this country. What sort of preparations are you making for that ballot? Because, you ran for president in 2023. Are you planning to run again in 2027?
I think each time I show up here, I get asked the same question.
Yeah, but we have to keep asking you to know whether you've changed.
That's important. And I keep telling you that, unlike the regular politicians, I'm always running.
You're a serial runner.
No, basically. Not running for office, but I do not stop after election.
Right.
I'm not looking at the calendar before I become active. What are we talking about? We're talking about end bad governance. We're talking about going to court.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, are you going to put your name forward in 2027 as a presidential candidate?
The point I am making
right.
is that even before 2027, I never took my name out of the running.
We've been seeing what you're doing, but
yes.
I'm talking about 2027.
I know what you're trying to arrive at, and what I'm saying is that you want me to make a declaration here that I've taken a position about 2027 running, but running for office is the easiest thing to do. Anybody can declare to run for office. today, and I've seen so many people come on your show, declare that they are running to be president, and 2 days after they left, they have gone to join other people who are running and said they are not running anymore. So it's very fluid.
Yeah, well, let me
but
ask
I'm
you
not
this,
on the
then.
same wavelength as those people. I'm not a regular, typical politician that comes on your show.
Yeah,
to,
you can certainly
you
say
know,
that-
if
say
when I'm
that
ready to
again.
if I were to declare tomorrow, I can do it on TikTok.
Yeah, but there's no chance of you defecting and joining hands.
That
with,
is
I
not-
mean, Segun Sowore was talking about the sort of the Yoruba group, the Yoruba ethnic
there's-
group, and
all-
of which you're a part. I mean,
of all the things he had to say,
I'm sure Tinubu would love to welcome you to his
all the things that
political
Segun-
fold.
of all the things that Segun had to say, the one that was stomach churning for me was the ethnocentric dimension that he introduced to it. Who cares? Well, you say, look, I don't care who the president of Nigeria is, as long as there is justice, as long as people can feed, there's health care. I lived in a country where my ethnicity didn't matter. Of course, the color of my skin did matter.
It did matter,
So-
yes. This was in America.
Yes, I lived in the US. But I could still find accommodation of that color of my skin and felt accepted in a country that I was never part of from the beginning. So for somebody to say, oh, Tinubu is Yoruba as a result, I'm Yoruba partly, I'm Ijaw partly, and I've opposed an Ijaw president before, Goodluck Jonathan, and I've opposed Yoruba president from Obasanjo to Tinubu. So there's nothing in my dictionary there's nothing appealing in saying that because somebody has a Yoruba name that I should support the person blindly. That is not how I operate.
Well, that's not.
mentally.
You're right. in the
Yes,
sense
and that's
that
why I'm
not the
so
way it should
disappointed
be.
that yes, that's why I'm disappointed
But
that Segun
Nigerian
has-
politics is a bit different, isn't it?
But they do all this too for different reasons and for selfish reasons, likely. They don't care about the Yoruba people. They don't care about Hausas. Buhari was in power for 8 years. Tell me how many Northerners he lifted out of poverty. They didn't care about, they cared only about themselves. But there's a central elite in this country who speak one language, and that language is not the ethnocentric language we know. It is greed. At that point, it doesn't matter whether you are Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo. When they're in that circle, who cares?
Yes, I suspect a lot of people
Yes.
would agree with you. But what about all these opposition coalition moves? Are you part of any
No,
of
no,
them?
I'm not part of. I have made it very clear that the opposition that Nigerian people need is the opposition created by the oppressed. Some of these opposition coalition moves you are saying are actually created to distract Nigerian people from creating their own opposition coalition. If you look at the people in these coalitions, there are people who are tired. Apart from the fact that there are people who are complicit in putting Nigeria where they are today, the people I call destiny rustlers, just as you talk about cow rustlers, they are, and a David Mark, who was president of the Senate for 8 years, was military ruler, who said, democracy can never come in his lifetime. He's the leader of the opposition. Where an El-Rufai who paid Fulani headsmen and openly confessed, he was on your show, that he paid them so that they would stop killing a Malami who was the Attorney General of Buhari some few months ago. I mean, like I keep asking, what is wrong with us Nigerians? How is it that we can't just one day say, look, enough of this, and we're going to change course? And that's where I stand. I'm here to help Nigerians change course for better, and not to help them turn the corner into another dark alley of destruction and ruination that has been brought to Nigeria by members of this coalition. And don't forget, this coalition people are the same people who created the APC. Just a few of them are not part of the APC coalition. So this is what they do for a living, creating coalitions that will come and still ruin and destroy your country. So it's up to you to say, look, this is not a coalition matter, it's a life and death issue.
On that note, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Really
having me.
nice of you to come in. Omoyele Sowore is a human rights activist, journalist, founder of the US-based news website Sahara Reporters, and former presidential candidate, possibly a presidential candidate again in 2027. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you.